Hello dolls and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, hi, I'm Emma and I'm so happy to have you around, and if you're coming back, hi doll, how have you been? I really appreciate that you're still here. So today I want to talk about a 1960s fashion trend that is intertwined with its muse like none other. A fashion trend that captivated many in the mid-1960s in New York. A fashion trend synonymous with the girl who made it famous. Today is all about 1960s factory fashion and its muse and founder, Edie Sedgwick. While in the early and mid-1960s, everyone was looking to London and the mod scene, one American girl became synonymous with a particular style, one that was short-lived, well-loved, and left an indelible mark on the decade. Edie Sedgwick, with her chandelier earrings, kohl-rimmed eyes, and iconic blonde pixie crop, was more than just a model or muse. She was the ultimate it girl of the 1960s, a fashion trailblazer whose influence echoed far beyond her brief moment in the spotlight. The 1960s were a time of Vidal Sassoon haircuts and Mary Quant minis, but Edie brought something different to the table. A look that was both minimalist and dramatic, rebellious yet polished. At Andy Warhol's factory, where she reigned as his muse, her style mirrored the creative chaos of her surroundings. Inspired by the place where it all started, this style would be called factory girl fashion, and only a few shined in it like Edie did. Striped mini dresses paired with black tights, boyish leotards under oversized fur coats, and statement jewelry that seemed almost too big for her delicate frame. Edie's fashion choices were as bold and experimental as the underground art scene she inhabited. Her rise and fall, what we might call the Edie Empire, captured the spirit of the era. Though her time as an it girl was fleeting, her influence on fashion, much like her impact on art and pop culture, remains undeniable. As John Galliano once said, she may have had 15 minutes of fame, but her fashion style and image influenced a whole generation. The factory girl fashion was defined and intertwined with the life of the girl that invented, shaped, and popularized it, Edie Sedgwick. So for this, it is really important to understand a little more about Edie's life to know how this really particular fashion trend came to be. Edie Sedgwick was born into privilege on April 20th in 1943 in Santa Barbara, California. She was the daughter of Francis Minturn Sedgwick, an eccentric sculptor who got lucky when oil was found on his property, and Ellis Delano DeForest, a socialite. The Sedgwick family's life, though gilded with affluence, was deeply troubled, marked by mental illness and strict control. Edie, the seventh of 8 children, grew up on a sprawling ranch in a chaotic household. After struggles with anorexia and psychiatric treatment as a teenager, she moved to Cambridge, Massachusetts to study art, before eventually heading to New York City in 1964. It was there, in Manhattan's vibrant circles, that she met Andy Warhol, who would change her life forever. There is so much more about Edie's life, like for example how her dad wanted to be referred to as fuzzy by all of his children, how they told his dad to not have children because the mental illnesses that ran in their family were so severe. There's just so much to unpack when it comes to her life, and that was just way too much to be fit into this video. But I have a podcast where my dear friend Abby and I talk about all the wonderful women that shaped the 1960s, and for the last season I wrote an entire episode all about Edie. I read a book that one of her sisters wrote, and it was truly fascinating, and I poured my heart and soul into portraying Edie in a way that I hoped she would have liked, and maybe also a little more honest than she would have been. So if you want to learn all about Edie and her life, check out my podcast. I'm going to have that linked in the description box, and listen to over an hour, I think, of us talking about Edie and her incredible life. While it is hard to believe, it is not surprising that Edie's style didn't begin in the glitzy world of Andy Warhol, but rather evolved from her eclectic upbringing and personal taste. Once she became a fixture at the factory, her fashion choices solidified what we now recognize as the iconic factory girl look. She combined simple, body-conscious basics like striped mini dresses, black tights, and leotards with dramatic, oversized accessories like chandelier earrings and fur coats. This style was much more about practicality as it was about drama. Her small frame and cropped platinum hair made every outfit look striking and modern. Her style, a mix of bohemian nonchalance and avant-garde boldness, soon became synonymous with the factory's underground art scene and set her apart as an icon. Because the factory girl style was solely defined by one woman, it is kind of hard to see where it actually came from. And I think it is mainly a symbiosis of Edie's life and personal taste, the popular styles of the mid-1960s, and the beatniks. The factory girl style, with its minimalist yet striking aesthetic, drew subtle influences from the beatnik movement of the late 1950s and early 1960s. Beatnik fashion, characterized by its intellectual and countercultural ideals, favored dark turtlenecks, black tights, and sleek, understated silhouettes. Elements that reappeared in Edie Sedgwick's wardrobe. Her love for leotards and simple black tights echoed the beatniks' emphasis on practicality and artistic self-expression, while her oversized accessories and dramatic makeup pushed these influences into a more theatrical, avant-garde direction. The factory girl look amplified the beatniks' bohemian roots, blending them with the bold energy of New York's underground art scene to create something entirely fresh and uniquely to the 1960s. I truly believe there is no other look that was so concentrated in the time span of which it was popular. Edie stepped onto the scene in the mid-1960s, popularized this look so much, but then a couple years later it was completely gone. So what defined the factory girl look? The factory girl look was all about stark contrast and striking silhouettes. The staples included striped or sequined mini dresses, black opaque tights, turtlenecks, leotards, and of course fur coats. The bigger the better. Edie's makeup was equally iconic. Heavy kohl-rimmed eyes, pale lips, and thick eyebrows. I actually have a makeup tutorial for Edie Sedgwick up on my channel. I'm gonna link it here for you. And that is actually what I followed when I did my makeup for today. It was so much fun looking back at myself from a couple of years ago, the girl who had just started recording YouTube videos from her little one-bedroom apartment, and now look where we are. So yeah, if you want to know how I created this look, go over there and check that out. While I'm doing my makeup, I'm also telling you a lot about Edie's life, so that might be interesting too. The androgynous yet feminine and minimalist yet decadent style captured the spirit of the factory, a melting pot of high art, street culture, and countercultural rebellion perfectly. Edie's ability to blend high-end designer pieces like Rudy Gernreich's futuristic designs with thrifted, self-made, and altered clothes gave her look a unique, rebellious edge that continues to inspire fashion today. So let's take a look at some of Edie's most iconic looks from the 1960s. This picture might be one of Edie's most iconics, and it was the one that introduced the world to a new it girl on the scene. Printed in Vogue in 1965, Diane Vreeland, the editor-in-chief, wrote, "Edie is shown here arabesquing on her leather rhino to a record of the Kings. It was at that moment that a new it girl was born." I really like this look. She's wearing a leotard with black tights that are the tiniest bit opaque, and then just a really classic, good fitted t-shirt. It's such an effortlessly cool look, and I feel like a lot of what makes the factory girl so iconic and so much their own is the fact that she was wearing these really high-end designer pieces, but then she could also just wear a t-shirt and a leotard like that. I personally think that this casual, chic, dreamy, modern, yet vintagey look is what makes it truly captivating. It's the fact that with a lot of Edie's outfits, it almost seems like the pieces that she's wearing aren't going together, and that kind of makes the look. Like, this is such a sporty look, but then she's wearing these big earrings with it, something that completely breaks from the rest of the outfit. And I feel like that contrast is where the factory girl fashion truly starts to happen. So this picture shows Edie and Andy, and they were so much more than just artistic collaborators. Andy and Edie were the duo of mid-1960s America. The pair met at a party in 1965, and Edie soon became part of Andy's inner circle. There's a lot of saying whether they had a romantic relationship, which pretty much everyone has denied. A lot of people say that Edie saw a father figure in Andy. He was much older than her. But overall, it was just a synergy, an artistic relationship, but also a very personal one. However, once their professional relationship faded, Edie said that she never never heard from Andy again, which I find truly heartbreaking, to be honest. But more on that in that podcast episode, as said. Edie starred in over 11 of Andy's films, so they hung out so much together. And this look is really interesting to me. This picture was taken at a party in 1965 where Edie and Andy were twinning in these metallic lame looks, perhaps an homage to the factory's foil-covered walls. I find this look to be really interesting because it does have that kind of like space age twist. It does have a really modern 1960s feel to it because these kind of like slightly flared pants were really new in the 1960s, and then also this really high cut, super tiny crop top too. But what I find particularly interesting is, imagine if these pants were made from a different material, like denim, and then imagine if the shirt was lace or just a regular cotton. This for me, and I'm gonna put pictures up for you to kind of like prove this theory, this silhouette, even though it seems so radical and new for her, is a silhouette that was worn a lot in the 1960s, like for example by Jane Birkin. Jane just wore different materials, thus making it a different kind of style, but I find it really interesting how these two fashion icons, who definitely have their own style and their styles are definitely quite far away from each other, still kind of like had elements that worked for the both of them. I find this to be truly interesting and so fascinating when talking about all the different fashion of the 1960s, how even if you think that this is a look completely unique to one person, someone else probably wore it and put its different twist on it. It just all goes to show you how much the 1960s favored personal style. This cropped mop girl with the eloquent legs is doing more for black tights than anyone since Hamlet, reads the copy accompanying this Life magazine photo shoot. So Edie was already a fashion icon by 1965, and in that year the magazine commissioned an entire spread for her famous black tights. In the 1950s and 60s, most women favored skin-colored tights. Then by the mid-1960s, the mop movement brought these really fun and brightly colored, colorful tights to the forefront. But Edie did something that wasn't really popular in the 1960s. She brought back black tights, which seemed pretty dated by the time, but that made them so revolutionary. She gave them this completely new, modern look, a look that soon everyone wanted to have. It is so interesting because I feel like many people think that with the black tights and the leotards, Edie wanted to set a new fashion statement. When I was with Andy Warhol, I was dancing jazz ballet twice a day, so I just wore my leotards, but Vogue photographed me in leotards and a t-shirt as a new costume, she explained. So it all just kind of like goes to show you that sometimes things just fall into place. In this picture, Edie is wearing this dreamy Rudi Gernreich dress. The neckline is really similar to what I am wearing actually. I really love this look. I feel like this is a very classic 1960s look. However, the way that she styled it is very Edie. It's very factory girl. I love the contrast with the black tights. I said that's something pretty much no one did in the mid-1960s. Rudi Gernreich's fashion in the 60s was really popular. He was so revolutionary. He was the one who brought these revolutionary bikini designs modeled by Peggy Moffitt to the forefront. And what I find truly interesting about this is, and you're gonna see this with the next outfit that we're gonna talk about, this is a designer dress. She looks very chic, very avant-garde. Then with other looks, she's just wearing some t-shirt and leotard. So it just really is so interesting to me how diverse this trend was, even though it really much boiled down to one person wearing it. Edie's tee of choice was a striped number in the style of the era's beatnik subculture. Inspired by authors and poets like Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg, the beatniks adored this look. Their uniform often consisted of wool sweaters, plaid shirts, and striped t-shirts. And the striped shirts were actually a trend that made its way over to mainstream fashion, with icons like Audrey Hepburn and James Dean wearing the Breton stripes. Edie was affiliated and infatuated with the beatnik scenes, with Jack Kerouac even appearing in Andy Warhol's film Couch. The factory scene adopted some of their satirical inclinations, with not only Edie, but also Andy donning the emblematic striped shirt. And even here you see how she makes these looks completely her own. She's wearing this classic striped shirt and then these huge, really avant-garde, really futuristic and interesting eclectic earrings. Something that most people probably wouldn't wear together because it once again does not seem like it would work together, but on Edie this look really came to life. This picture shows Edie and Andy at a party. It shows her in her classic black leotard that has like a little bit of a mock neck, some black tights, black shoes, a huge leather coat, and some pearls. That's kind of like what I tried to go by when putting together my look for today. It is so simple, the entire look, the simple lines, the all black, but then she's decked out in beautiful jewelry, something that makes this look a true factory girl style. Edie's choice of accessories have been immortalized by Bob Dylan. Some have speculated that his 1966 song Leopard Skin Pillbox Hat was inspired by her, while others have alleged that Just Like a Woman was written about her. Specifically the line, her fog, her amphetamines, and pearls. Edie was rarely photographed without at least one statement accessory, a smattering of pearl necklaces, satin evening gloves, or most famously her chandelier earrings. Edie's signature haircut was inspired by Andy Warhol himself. After moving to New York and meeting Andy, Edie cut her long brown hair and dyed it silver to match the artist. In this picture, she's attending the salon opening of Vidal Sassoon, who was one of the most iconic 1960s hairdressers. And what I really love about her short haircut is that it always emphasized these huge earrings that she was wearing all the time. She looks absolutely darling in this dress. It is glittery, it is so much fun, it is young, and it just embodies Edie so perfectly. And of course the Edie earrings, she never went anywhere without those. Whether it was wearing them with a t-shirt or a high-end dress, it didn't matter. Wherever Edie was, her iconic chandelier earrings were too. Edie also made leopard print popular during a time where it really wasn't. She brought this look back to the forefront of fashion with this dreamy coat that she wore so much. I think that this is such a cool look. I also love the cut. It's kind of like a trench coat cut. It looks so good on her, and I love how she took this piece that was probably a vintage piece and just brought it to life again. This Warhol photo booth picture commemorates Edie's storied relationship with her beloved coat, dubbed by Edie herself as, in quotes, the most beautiful coat in the world. She claims that it was given to her in the middle of a street by one of her many admirers. No one knows whether this is true or not, but I don't think it sounds unbelievable. The coat followed her to many factory parties and beyond, and it even survived a massive house fire that Edie claimed destroyed all her belongings, besides this coat, which she had kept by her bedside. I also wanted to show you this picture because it is so truly different. I feel like it is so interesting because when you look at this picture, it kind of reminds me of Brigitte Bardot. It's this really classic 1960s bombshell look, and she looks beautiful. Edie was a stunning woman, but at the same time it is so different from her personal style that it almost looks weird to me. It just goes to show you that someone can look great in a number of different styles, but for me, even though she looks so stunning in this, it does not embody her the way that these other pictures do. And I wonder if this is a reason why her modeling career never really took off. Maybe it was because she was so at home in her own iconic style that the idea of being a blank canvas for someone else's project and product just did not work for her. Edie's style was deeply intertwined with her personal story. Many styles are shaped and pioneered by a particular person, like for example the motte look and Mary Quant. But this is different. While Mary Quant designed the motte look, Edie was the factory girl style. Her penchant for minimalist silhouettes reflected her dancer's physique, while her dramatic makeup and accessories hinted at her longing for attention and validation in a world where she often felt invisible. Raised in an emotionally stifling environment, her fashion became her rebellion, a way to assert her identity amidst the chaos of her upbringing. The boldness of her look mirrored her fearless and sometimes reckless personality. Her reliance on simple, affordable pieces like leotards and tights also spoke to her fluctuating financial circumstances, as she spent much of her time in New York City living off a trust fund that barely covered her extravagant lifestyle. It's hard to pin down what made a factory girl because Edie herself was the true embodiment. This look wasn't planned, it was whatever she wore. But if you'd ask me to pin it down, I would probably describe it like this. A factory girl is the embodiment of fearless individuality and creative expression, blissfully unaware of cliched fashion rules and unapologetically following her instincts. Her style is avant-garde yet effortless, transforming everyday moments into high fashion statements with a spontaneity that feels both rebellious and chic. She draws inspiration from the diverse personal styles of others, celebrating individuality rather than competing with it. A factory girl isn't afraid of imperfection. She wears her flaws and scars with pride, seeing them as a proof of the risks she's taking and the life she's lived. She has an innate sense of empathy, often aligning herself with the underdog, having experienced alienation herself and finding beauty in those society overlooks. Above all, she thrives on self-expression, embracing her past, her quirks, and her boldest ideas, making her a magnetic force in any room she enters. While the factory girl look wasn't directly marketed as a commercial fashion trend, elements of it seeped into mainstream style. Brands like Betsy Johnson and designers such as Rudy Gernreich incorporated elements of the look, like bold graphic patterns and playful mini dresses into their own collections. However, the essence of the factory girl style was in its self-made attitude and the way it defined notions of glamour, making it hard to mass market. Instead, the look remained largely confined to the avant-garde and underground scenes, influencing individual artists and fashion-forward youth rather than dominating department store racks. While Edie was the undisputed queen of factory girl fashion, other figures at the factory contributed to its evolution. Andy Warhol himself influenced the look with an emphasis on minimalism and repetition, which translated into clean lines and reoccurring staples in the factory style. Factory regulars such as Nico, the singer of the Velvet Underground, and Ingrid Superstar added their own twists, from bohemian touches to more rock-inspired elements. Beyond that, many young girls saw Edie's looks in the newspapers and magazines and got inspired by her. However, this new and bold look was so revolutionary that many were stunned or shocked to see someone who wasn't part of the New York art scene wear it out. If a schoolgirl or a regular young woman in the 1960s wore the factory girl look out, she would have stood out as edgy, bold, and daring. The aesthetic was so strikingly different from mainstream fashion at the time, which still led towards more conservative and traditional styles. Many people might have viewed her with curiosity or even shock, depending on where she was. In cosmopolitan areas like New York or London, she might have been admired by the fashionable or creative crowd for her avant-garde and rebellious style. However, in more conservative or suburban settings, the look could have been seen as provocative and eccentric, as it defined conventional standards of femininity and modesty. Elements like the short skirts, the heavy eye makeup, and androgynous features might have attracted criticism and judgment, but they also symbolized a progressive, independent attitude. Ultimately, wearing the factory girl look in public was a bold statement, aligning the wearer with the counterculture and signaling a willingness to challenge societal norms. The factory girl look was distinctly American in its raw, rebellious energy and DIY ethos. Unlike the Polish and coordinated aesthetics of Mod London, which emphasized on clean lines, bright colors, and geometric patterns, factory girl fashion was more undone and experimental. It wasn't about perfection, it was about attitude. While mod style celebrated a youthful optimism, the factory girl look embraced the gritty, avant-garde spirit of New York's underground art scene. It was less about trends and more about individuality, making it a counterpoint to more structured fashion designs coming out of London and Paris. The factory girl look didn't dominate mainstream fashion in a way that mod or hippie styles did, but it gained a cult following in creative and avant-garde circles. It resonated with artists, musicians, and fashion-forward youth who were drawn to the edgy, effortless style. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, elements of the look like mini dresses, tights, and statement jewelry had filtered into broader fashion trends. However, the full aesthetic remained a niche phenomenon, more admired for its cultural significance than widely adopted by the masses. I actually think that a lot of Edie's style and influences later made its entrance into mainstream fashion via biba. I feel like a lot of these big earrings, a lot of the darker tones, all of that really much had a big comeback with the biba times. Today, the factory girl look lives on as a symbol of 1960s counterculture and individuality. Its influence can be seen in the resurgence of minimalist, oversized accessories and bold makeup in contemporary fashion. Brands like Yves Saint Laurent and Alexander Wang have drawn from this edgy downtown look, while vintage enthusiasts continue to channel Edie's look. As the years pass, Edie Sedgwick's legacy drifts through the cultural fabric of the 1960s like a forgotten whisper, ever present yet fading into the haze of time. Her style, though born in the gritty shadows of Warhol's factory, continues to glisten with a kind of magic. Bold yet simple, rebellious yet effortlessly chic, the factory girl with her striking silhouette and fearless spirit remains a figure frozen in time, like a photograph snapped in the midst of a dream. Her look wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a declaration of freedom, of being unapologetically herself in a world that was constantly changing. It's impossible not to feel a longing when thinking about her. The simple yet striking pieces she wore now feel like relicts of a bygone era, treasured not just for their aesthetic, but for the story they tell, a story of a young woman who lived fiercely despite the weight of a world that often didn't understand her. Today, the echoes of Edie's factory girl fashion linger in the corners of our closets, in the flicker of vintage photographs, and in the lines of modern designs that draw from her timeless cool. And as we don her signature chandelier earrings or slip into a striped mini, we catch a glimpse of that daring, unapologetic spirit. The spirit of a girl who changed everything, even if only for 15 minutes. So that is it for today's video. That is it for Edie Sedgwick's story and the factory girl fashion. I know that this is a very niche and small 1960s style, and I felt like it was really important to also talk about Edie because she was the founder, the muse, and the person who just made the factory girl look so truly iconic. I really hope you enjoyed this video, this stroll through Edie's life and the wonderful world of factory girl fashion. Let me know which of these Edie styles are your favorites. There is so much and it is so hard to choose because she just had all of these wonderful fashion pieces. But if there's one that stands out particularly to you, I would love to know. I hope you have a beautiful day. The day that you're seeing this, if you're seeing this on the day that it goes up, is actually my birthday. So I really hope you enjoyed this as a little birthday gift from me to you. Go out, enjoy the sunshine that is now finally coming into this room. Take yourself some time to focus on you and your mental health today, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, dolls!